My name is Kimberly Boyd, and I have identical twin girls, Burke and Baker. They were born on March 2nd this year, so they're about 8 months old. I'm a twin, and my dad is a twin, so I always wanted twins, and I always had this feeling that I was going to have twins. So at about 7 weeks, when I went for my first ultrasound, I said to the doctor, there's a history of twins in my family. I think I could be carrying twins. And she checked and said, nope, just one healthy heartbeat. So of course I was thrilled, but there was this little bit of disappointment inside that I wasn't having the twins that I was certain I was pregnant with. So a few weeks later, it was about 10 weeks, I had to go back for another test, and that's when the nurse was doing the ultrasound, and she was about to turn the monitor towards me to show me my baby, and she stopped, and I thought, oh gosh, something must be wrong. And I said, is everything okay? And she said, well, yes, everything's fine, but there's 2 babies in here. And I thought, oh, there was no better feeling in the world. I really do think it was the best moment of my life. So I can't say enough about the experience that I had with my doctor, Dr. Julian Robinson. So he specializes in twins, and I believe in monodi twins, which are the type of twins that I had. So it was a challenging pregnancy, but he was excellent in giving us up-to-date information. He tracked us weekly, so every week my husband and I would come for an ultrasound and a meeting, and he would go through the results with us. He was very clear about answering any questions that we had. So we had a few complications throughout the pregnancy. The first was that I had a very short cervix, so that was the initial concern. And then as the pregnancy progressed, there was a concern for twin-to-twin transfusion and also for unequal sharing of the placenta. So we went every week, we had ultrasounds, and we would go for the ultrasound, and then Dr. Robinson would meet with us and explain the results. And he was wonderful because he was very matter-of-fact and specific. So he would never allow me to jump to conclusions or play the, well, what if game. He was very matter-of-fact with the facts, which we really did appreciate. So I had never experienced heartburn before, and the first time I had it, I actually thought I was having a heart attack because it was so strong. So for me, with heartburn, I just had to really watch my diet, and I found myself sleeping on one side versus the other, and just anything I could do to be comfortable. I did have a lot of lower back pain, so I lived with a heating pad and a body pillow. Those were really the 2 things that I couldn't live without. In fact, towards the end, I felt like there wasn't enough room in our bed for my husband because my body pillow was so big, and I was constantly moving around to be comfortable. So I had the girls at 32 weeks, and I had an emergency cesarean. So along the way, they were always concerned about the smaller baby, and given that we weren't 100% certain whether or not it was twin-to-twin or unequal sharing, the key was to ensure that the babies at some point would be safer coming out than they were inside of me. So obviously Dr. Robinson was tracking things very closely, and so I started to have a lot of pains, and so I came to the urgent care here and at Brigham, and so I stayed the night, and then in the morning I felt like there was some cramping, and sure enough they hooked me up to the machine, and I was having very strong contractions very close together. So they said, it's showtime, we're going to do this right now. And I'll never forget, because my husband was standing next to me, and they said, okay, here are the scrubs, we need you to get ready, we're going to do the C-section. And my husband said, well, can I go get my camera? And they said, where's your camera? I said, in the car. They said, nope. Do you have a phone? That'll do. We need to do this now. I think it's really challenging when you're having a difficult pregnancy, because there are so many factors that are out of your control. And I think we naturally have an inclination to want to control a situation. So it was really just focusing on what I could impact, which was following the doctor's orders and live in the moment, and just be certain that the doctors know what they're doing. And it's hard to really have to let go during a process like that. And For me personally, it was challenging because there was always this concern that, one baby might not survive or potentially both. So I really was somewhat detached from my pregnancy, so I felt like I didn't necessarily get to bond with my babies. Obviously, in the grand scheme of things, that it didn't matter because I feel very connected with my girls now, but I think mentally I had to somewhat detach because I was so concerned on a day-to-day basis of whether or not that we would have a positive outcome. Someone said to me once when I was pregnant, I had a meeting with two moms of twins, and I remember them telling me, moms of twins aren't normal moms. We're warrior moms. And at the time, I felt very inspired and excited by that. And now I understand why, now that we have the girls home, because you certainly have to approach things differently and you have to be able to multitask. But at the end of the day, you get through it, and it's just such an amazing experience to see, in my case, my two daughters growing up with each other and knowing each other and loving each other, and it's just such an amazing experience. So Burke and Baker are 8 months old, and they're doing wonderfully. Little Baker is full of energy, and it's so much fun watching their personalities emerge. They're discovering each other right now, and it's so much fun watching them get to know each other and really develop a love for one another.